Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's incredibly important that British Columbians have access to emergency information.
As wildfires burn in BC already, the province and Ottawa again urge the owners of Facebook to unblock Canadian news in the name of public safety. Plus,
they're saying the products are very good for the environment, very good for the climate, and they are terrible.
Accused of greenwashing. Canada's competition watchdog looks into Lululemon's environmental practices. And
Canuck fan, are you living with an Oiler fan?
as the Canucks gear up for a second-round Stanley Cup playoff tilt against the Oilers, what do you do in a house divided?
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. As BC steers at yet another potentially destructive wildfire season, the provincial and federal governments are again urging the owners of Facebook and Instagram to unblock Canadian news. As Liam Britton reports, they say it's a matter of public safety.
Feel the heat?
Oh my God.
Last year, wildfires in BC forced 48,000 people from their homes, some given just minutes to leave. 28,000 square kilometers, an area about the size of Albania, went up in flames, double the previous record. And amid a month-long provincial state of emergency, officials claim social media companies did not help.
I call on Facebook again. Mr. Zuckerberg, open up access to Canadian media so that British Columbians can share critical local information so they can be safe. It's incredibly frustrating to me.
This year, wildfires are already burning in BC, and experts warn this season could be destructive again. The provincial government is once again imploring Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, to unblock Canadian news on its platforms when critical information needs to get out.
It's important for us to explore all opportunities available to us to bring that information to where people are at, and a lot of people are on social media.
So, why is Meta blocking Canadian news? Now, this is because of the Federal Online News Act. That's a piece of legislation that compels tech giants to pay when they use Canadian outlets' stories on their platforms. So far, Alphabet, which owns Google and YouTube, has agreed to pay, but Meta, which owns Instagram and Facebook, has not. And since July, they haven't allowed any Canadian news on their platforms. And experts say at a time of crisis, when information is critical, that is a problem.
Because you have a segment of the population that doesn't rely on newspapers. And, the vast majority of Canadians, and statistics show this, get most of their content from social media.
Daniel Chai is an adjunct professor of business law and technology at the University of Toronto.
Companies like Meta and other large big tech companies like to trumpet their corporate social responsibility. But when it really comes down to it, they're just focused on the almighty buck. And they're willing to compromise and put people's health and safety at risk.
Chai argues the feds could compel Meta to share information during emergencies and could take a harder line with the company.
I don't think we've had a government that's really demonstrated the courage to really stand up to big tech.
The federal heritage minister today slammed Meta, once again urging the company to unblock news, especially during wildfire season, adding, quote, "Their actions send a troubling message. They consider themselves above oversight in the public interest, legislation promised during elections, and even the smallest and most reasonable regulation." Meta did not respond to CBC's request for comment. So while the focus over the next few months will be what happens on the front lines, it's not clear who will share what information online. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada's competition watchdog is investigating Lululemon's environmental practices after an advocacy group filed a complaint against the Vancouver-based clothing giant. Nisha Patel has more on why it's being accused of greenwashing.
Lululemon makes activewear that's known around the world. Now climate activists allege the company is misleading its customers.
They're saying the products are very good for the environment, very good for the climate, and they are terrible. They create massive amounts of climate pollution.
Environmental group Stand.Earth claims the brand markets itself as climate-friendly while creating massive greenhouse gas emissions.
We made a move for the planet. You'll never feel the difference.
The Competition Bureau is investigating and says there's no conclusion of wrongdoing at this time. But if the watchdog finds the complaint is valid, Lululemon could face hefty fines. Though what advocates really want from the retailer is change.
We would like to create a win-win solution with Lululemon to see them really target and eliminate the climate pollution in their supply chain.
Experts say it's not just Lululemon. Climate impact remains a big issue across the fashion industry.
Lots of polyester, all of these petroleum-derived synthetic fabrics. And when we produce them at the scale, even if we did it sustainably, there's still going to be impact.
And shoppers say that's something they're thinking about.
It definitely does bother me because they are such a big company. They probably have a lot more resources to be more eco-friendly and green.
Well, it bothers me when any company says they're going to do something and they sort of greenwash.
Lululemon didn't respond to a request for comment, but the company has stated in the past that it's committed to its decarbonization plan. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Burnaby RCMP have released a sketch of a suspect in an alleged sexual assault involving a victim in her 80s. It happened in Central Park in February. Take a look. The suspect is said to be a man between 40 to 50 years old with short black hair, groomed long beard, and a Middle Eastern accent. He was wearing gray nylon jacket with black pants and shoes. Police say the victim was walking through a park trail when she was approached. The suspect allegedly groped her and tried to kiss her. 3 suspects accused in the murder of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar are set to appear in a Surrey courtroom tomorrow. The 3 Indian nationals are each charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Nijjar was killed last June outside the Surrey Gurdwara, where he was president. His murder threw Canada's relationship with India into disarray after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau suggested Indian government officials may have played a role in Nijjar's death. Legislation aimed at tackling foreign interference in Canada was introduced in Ottawa today. As Catherine Cullen explains, it includes new powers for Canada's spy agency and a registry for anyone working on behalf of foreign governments.
It's an effort to crack down on foreign meddling.
A bill which would give Canada new, modern tools to combat foreign interference.
That issue has been a political headache for the government and a personal one for other Canadians. Gloria Fung says she has faced death threats for speaking out against the Chinese government.
I have also been constantly warned by anonymous caller not to interfere with the Hong Kong or China issues, even though I'm now a proud Canadian.
She's among those who have pushed for a foreign influence registry.
With this registry, we hope that we can change these circumstances and putting a heavy cost to foreign interference.
Indeed, all the federal parties have called for one.
We must establish a foreign influence registry to identify all the foreign agents that foment disagreement and division.
This plan would require anyone to register if they're exerting political influence for a foreign power. Break the rules, and there could be fines, even criminal penalties, with hopes the registry will be up and running before the next election.
We would hope that all of this legislation will be in place.
But the intimidation of those diaspora communities most intensely affected is likely harder to stop.
Most of the pressure that's put on them is put on them by clandestine agents who aren't going to come and tell us that they're doing what they're doing.
Though the legislation deals with other national security concerns too, that part of the plan could be the biggest help to those facing pressure.
It's created new criminal offenses that really are designed to sanction those kinds of transnational repressions, harassment, intimidation, threats of violence, blackmail, coercion, whatever it might be.
Catherine Cullen reporting. Here in BC, civic advocates in Richmond are raising concerns over election interference in their community. On Friday, the first phase of an inquiry suggested foreign interference in 2021 may have cost a federal candidate his seat. As John Hernandez explains, community leaders want lessons to be learned.
I think late it's better than never.
You could call it vindication for Kenny Chiu. The former Conservative MP lost his Steveston Richmond East seat to Parm Bains by about 3,000 votes in 2021. He raised concerns about foreign interference in the election, spurring a public inquiry. A report released on Friday suggested there was a reasonable possibility meddling cost Chiu his seat.
Canada is a fertile ground for foreign interference. The diaspora communities, unfortunately, is at the front line and they get the brunt of it.
The report cited misinformation about Chiu that was spread by online outlets and social media sites with ties to Beijing.
Canadians may have lost a little bit of confidence in our electoral system.
A finding that comes as no surprise to this former Canadian intelligence official.
And that is kind of the end game of a lot of authoritarian states. Their contempt for liberal democracies is we'll eventually not participate and not see them as valid.
Concerns now mounting in Richmond, where residents may have been targeted.
English is not our first language. Even though we watch English news, many diaspora, including the Chinese community, we watch and receive news in Chinese.
Civic education advocate Ken Tung says misinformation can be hard to avoid for many. He says possible influence of Beijing over the community is upsetting.
We moved to Canada is want to leave all the threat behind. And now it feels like it is all the threat and unsafe situation is following us.
Tung says what's needed is a public platform where people can report misinformation to stop it from spreading. He's also calling on community members to look out for themselves and each other.
If you have the engagement, you can receive proper information.
The federal inquiry will now look at ways to stop foreign meddling, with more hearings expected later this year. John Hernandez, CBC News, Richmond.
BC is marking Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, by introducing a new anti-hate fund to protect synagogues, community centers, and other gathering places targeted by anti-Semitic graffiti and vandalism.
We mark Yom HaShoah in the context of the attacks of October 7th and the largest murder of Jews since the Holocaust.
The province is also making Holocaust education mandatory for all high school students in BC. The Premier says learning about the Holocaust fosters critical thinking, social responsibility, and moral decision-making. B'nai B'rith Canada says the number of anti-Semitic incidents reached a record high last year. To other news now, the Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers are set to take the ice in a Stanley Cup playoff battle not seen since the 1990s. The competition is set to be fierce both inside and outside the rink, especially, as Karis Hogg explains, if you live in a home where the battle lines are very clear.
Hi, I'm Karis, and I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. I have been ever since I was a wee little kid. So I'm very excited that they're in the second round of the playoffs. The Vancouver Canucks are playing the Edmonton Oilers starting on Wednesday. But here's the thing. I'm married to an Edmonton Oilers fan. How are we going to navigate this playoff series? This has never happened in our relationship before. The last time the Vancouver Canucks met the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs was 1992. Are you in this same situation? Canuck fan, are you living with an Oiler fan? Or Oiler fan, are you living with a Canuck fan? Maybe a partner, a relative, a roommate. How are you going to navigate this playoff series? I would love to hear how you're going to do it because I have no idea what we're going to do. Send me an email, karis.hogg@cbc.ca. Go Canucks, go.
Vancouver police are trying to track down the owner of a wayward dog that hitched a ride with them on the Cambie Street Bridge Sunday. Police say the wet dog jumped into a police cruiser to warm up after it was spotted on the bridge around 7 o'clock. The hand-licking doggo was brought to the Animal Services Center in Strathcona, where its parent can come pick them up, bring a treat. The countdown to the Paris Summer Olympics is on. After the break, we catch up with a Cree wrestler who says she is ready for the match of a lifetime. Athletes continue to prepare as the Summer Olympics in Paris get closer. Justina D'Estasio has almost 20 years of wrestling under her belt and is now getting ready for the biggest match of her life. Jackie McKay caught up with the Cree athlete during practice.
You just come in and you show up and you give it your all. That way, no matter what happens in August, there's nothing you could have done better.
Can you just introduce why we're talking to you and say your First Nation for me?
I am the 76 kilogram rep for Team Canada for wrestling this summer in the Olympic Games, and I'm a member of Norway House Cree Nation. It seems awesome right now, I'm going to the Olympics, but if you follow my story, it's like this, and I think the most important part is that I keep coming back even when it's not awesome. I didn't know how badly I wanted to be an Olympian and make it to the Olympics until that opportunity was almost taken away. It's taken 2 Olympic cycles, but finally we're almost there.
Now that you've qualified for the Olympics, what's the goal?
I mean, I want to win the Olympics. It's important to have that goal in mind every day, and when training gets hard or when you're tired or whatever, I just say to myself, I'll do anything to win the Olympics, and it's almost like an extra push.
Well, how do we get more Indigenous wrestlers to the Olympics and sports at that level?
Indigenous communities, sometimes they're more rural communities, so all you really need is a partner. As much as it's just fun, play wrestle with people, to get it to the point where all these kids can learn and come and build confidence. If they have a coach that can lead them, I think that's a big part of the process. If you're an Indigenous kid, if you're not an Indigenous kid, if you're a boy or a girl, whatever your sport you're joining, sports are really, really hard, so don't think you only have to love it because you're winning. And even if you're not winning at the beginning, stick with it. I was winning at the beginning, but then I was not, and if I'd quit, I never would have been here. So find something you like and find a reason to fall in love with it besides winning.
Ahead of more anticipated drought in BC, watering restrictions are now in place across Metro Vancouver. After the break, how some gardeners are managing. To try to save Metro Vancouver's limited supply of treated drinking water, people and businesses are only allowed to water lawns once a week now. As Ali Patarque tells us, it's forcing gardeners to get creative.
Hot and dry conditions are becoming more common in BC, and those are key concerns for gardeners. With lawn watering restrictions now in effect, people are questioning how they can maintain their yards and gardens while using minimal water. The Jane's Walk, Mow It or Grow It event is aiming to help them find a solution.
It's got a lot of native plants that are growing here, and you can obviously see that it's low maintenance.
Low maintenance is what some gardeners are looking for this summer. Plants that require less watering but can still flourish amid droughts. At this old Vancouver neighborhood between Yukon and Columbia Streets, gardeners can find inspiration for alternative, diverse lawns. Yards with minimal grass but lush with plants, trees, vegetable gardens, and insect habitats. It's where John Shinnick and Judy Shinnick lead the Mow It or Grow It walking tour, hoping to plant a few ideas on attendees.
It gives you alternatives to what kinds of things you can do at home, putting in plants that not only help the community enjoy the walks around the neighborhood, but they also provide homes for insects and things that are needing them right now.
Last year, drought conditions reached their highest level in parts of BC. This year, the BC River Forecast Center is warning that the province's snowpack is the lowest it's ever been at this time of year, 63% of normal. All the while, Metro Vancouver expects a 50% increase in water use over the summer.
There's so many things that you can grow now that are more drought tolerant because many of the nurseries are starting to focus on that. Native plants are often a good way to go. They're not as showy as maybe some of the other flowers are. But they are going to adapt better to our current climate.
The David Suzuki Foundation has a program to curb the ecological footprint of turf grass lawns, or lawns with a traditional bed of grass. It's called Lawn Share.
We're encouraging people just to look at lawns in a different way because they do use an incredible amount of water. Some studies say that they use about a third of the water in urban and suburban areas.
Hannington says having more native plants not only requires less water, but could also reduce pesticides and herbicides, which then help pollinators beautify areas.
You know, it can be a challenge because people aren't used to that. They like their lawns. You've even seen what the city has done in some areas where they've planted native wildflowers. It looks really beautiful.
A sight he hopes to see growing in more yards going forward. Ali Patarque, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madavi is taking some well-earned time off. So weathercaster Victor Paulo joins us now with our BC forecast. Victor?
Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic Monday. Taking a look at a couple of headlines and what's in store for our weather. Well, we do know it was a cloudy day today. Not as clear and sunny as we would like it to be for someone like myself that is a huge fan of clear skies. But those thunder showers is what we're expecting when it comes to tonight, a chance of thunder showers. But once we get into about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning for mainland Vancouver and the surrounding area, well, guess what? It's going to be clear skies. We're expecting those clouds to clear. And once those clouds clear, we're going to have ourselves a streak of sunny days and clear nights, as you do see over here. Now, as we do take a look at some daytime highs all across, well, let's take a look at the west here. Let's focus on, where we're located. Vancouver, 15 degrees, and they do say if May 7th, your temperature is in double digits compared to your neighbors who might be in single digits, chances are you're going to win that playoff series. I know I'm rooting for the Canucks. Now, taking a look at what else the weather's going to be for the rest of this week, well, it's going to be tied 16-16 when it comes to the highs for Wednesday. But when it comes to Thursday, look who takes the lead, 2-1. Vancouver is going to be at 21 degrees, Edmonton at 20. Now, here's what else is going to be happening when it comes to your weather. Taking a look for tonight, it's going to be 9 degrees. And as we talked about, you're going to see the cloudy skies, and there will be a chance of thunder showers. So make sure if you do hear that thunder roar, make sure you go indoors. And as we transition into the morning, we talked about the clear skies, those clouds getting out of the way, and we get to experience a whole lot of sunlight. It's going to be around 10 degrees by the time we start. Now, as we get later on into the day, it's going to get to as high as about 14 degrees. Speaking of temperatures for the next 5 days, look at this great streak of weather. We got a 14-degree Wednesday, 15-degree Wednesday, correction, and then we eventually get towards 20 degrees by the time we reach Friday. And Saturday, we see a bit of cloud cover working its way in. But you know what? On a weekend, if everyone's going to be out and about, a little bit of cloud cover to give us a bit of blocking from the sun, it's not all that bad. Hope you all have yourselves a great rest of your night, and over to you.
Thanks, Victor. As we approach Mother's Day weekend, we're taking a look at the importance of mothers and mother figures in our lives. After the break, our Dr. Melissa Lim shares how she balances motherhood and a busy clinical practice. Stick around. Mark your calendars now. Mother's Day is this Sunday. And this week we're taking a closer look at the ways mothers and mother figures impact our lives and how motherhood has changed through time. Many people experience motherhood alongside a full-time career, and that means wearing many hats all at once. We're joined now by somebody who knows a thing or two about that, CBC health columnist Dr. Melissa Lim. Dr. Lim, thanks for joining us. You are, let's list them off. You're a mother, a family doctor, public speaker, add several more things to the list. Are there any particular challenges for women in the medical field once they become mothers?
Well, I would would say that our experience as medical mothers is a lot like other new moms. No matter how much you've read or taken care of other babies and families, you don't know what it's like until you're back at home without a healthcare team supporting you, responsible for a brand new human. You know, we as doctors think we know what sleep deprivation is like because of the on-call we have to do as medical students and staff, but having a newborn takes it to a whole other level. And for many women who are career-driven and used to being in control, the motherhood experience can be a really humbling one. But I would say at the same time, every medical mother I've spoken with also says that it's one of the most rewarding experiences they've ever had. You gain a new appreciation for what mothers go through, and that ends up making you a better doctor.
When it comes to that, what supports do you wish you had more of, and where can they translate into mothers who may not be in the medical field?
Well, I would say a big question for a lot of doctors and other working moms, like you said, is how am I going to fit parenting into my life when you have to balance, say, training with paying off a six-figure debt, trying to establish your career, or taking care of your practice. And that said, there are definitely things that healthcare and other employers can do to make it easier, like providing childcare on site, or helping to cover childcare expenses, or allowing more flexible work hours, or even working from home sometimes. But you know what else is really important too is gender equity, is closing the gender wage gaps, which unfortunately also exist in medicine, especially in surgical specialties, so that women take home the same amount of pay for the same amount of work, and making it normal for fathers to take parental leave too.
Many working mothers, technically, they have two jobs. One they're paid for if they're in the medical field, and the one they do at home, which is unpaid. What impact does that have on a person's physical as well as their mental health?
Well, it has some pretty big impacts. And what you're referring to, Dan, is the double shift or the invisible labor that women have to do. Even though close to half of women in opposite sex marriages earn more than or the same as their husbands, the vast majority are doing more at home. A recent study from the US, in fact, showed that even in marriages where women are the top earner, on average, they're still spending 3.5 hours more per week on childcare and household chores. And on average, the only kind of relationship where women and men are doing equal housework is when the woman is the sole breadwinner. And of course, this can lead to less time for self-care, exercise, and sleep. We do know that working mothers experience higher rates of depression and anxiety than working fathers. So we need to actively change those social norms and put a higher value on that unpaid work to improve the health of working moms.
You've talked about the satisfaction you get from your career and serving patients. What's one of your favorite things about being a mom?
You know, Dan, aside from just how cute and funny my son still is at 9 years old, I would say that my favorite thing is how much purpose he gives my life. Almost everything I do in my work and my life, I'm thinking about how I can make sure that he has a happy and a healthy future to look forward to. You know, I would say that being a mother is probably the most important job I have.
CBC Health columnist Dr. Melissa Lim, thank you for joining us today, and ahead of it, happy Mother's Day.
Thanks, Dan.
To a major development in a Winnipeg murder case now. Jeremy Skibecki admits he did kill 3 Indigenous women and 1 unidentified victim. But as Cameron McIntosh reports, his lawyer argues he is not criminally responsible.
Melissa Robinson calls it one step closer to justice.
We're super ecstatic.
Jeremy Skibecki now admits to killing her cousin Morgan Harris, along with 2 other Indigenous women, Mercedes Myron, Rebecca Contois, and a 4th unidentified victim given the name Buffalo Woman, who police say wore this jacket with a fur hood.
This man has killed 4 of our women, and he will be held responsible.
In court, Skibecki's lawyers said they plan to argue he's not criminally responsible for the deaths due to mental disorder.
Just wait for the trial to unfold, and then you'll get all the information there.
He'll still go to trial, still plead not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder, but will no longer be tried by a jury. The Crown no longer has to prove Skibecki killed the women, just that he had criminal intent. The defense will argue Skibecki was incapable of understanding his actions.
I think that's a real uphill battle for the defense in this case.
Brandon Trask specializes in cases involving not criminally responsible pleas.
They typically relate to sort of a short period of time. Now you've got potentially much longer period of time across the span of 4 killings.
The remains of Myron and Harris, disposed of in the garbage, are still believed to be buried in a landfill north of Winnipeg.
Search the landfill!
For more than a year, outraged family members and Indigenous leaders have demanded a search. This spring, the federal and provincial governments agreed to help fund a search after the trial.
Are your governments confident that a search could begin this year?
Yeah, we are.
As for the trial ahead, it's expected to take weeks as the Crown lays out its case against Skibicki and how it alleges he preyed upon and killed 4 separate women. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Still in Manitoba, that province's Court of Appeal has now dismissed Peter Nygaard's extradition appeal. Today's decision comes more than a year after his lawyer argued that case in court. Nygaard is facing extradition to the U.S. and sex trafficking charges in the Southern District of New York. That would happen after his Canadian trials are finished. Nygaard is awaiting sentencing after a conviction last November on 4 counts of sexual assault dating between the late 1980s and 2005 in Toronto. He faces similar charges in Montreal and Manitoba. Donald Trump has been warned he risks jail time if he violates a gag order again at his hush money trial in New York. The former U.S. president was fined $1,000 today and held in contempt of court for the 10th time. The gag order bars Trump from speaking publicly about the jury, prosecutors, and witnesses. After the ruling, jurors heard from a former Trump Organization financial officer about business and banking dealings that could bolster the prosecution's case. Trump faces 34 counts of falsifying business records tied to accusations he covered up a $130,000 payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels to bury her story about an alleged sexual encounter with him. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Big developments today in the war between Israel and Hamas. Israel ordered more than 100,000 people to leave an eastern part of Rafah, saying it's preparing what it called a limited scope operation against Hamas. Later in the day, though, Hamas announced it accepted a proposed ceasefire brokered by Egypt and Qatar. The CBC's Richard Madden has more from Washington.
Well, the White House reacting with caution in response to that proposed ceasefire deal accepted by Hamas. National Security spokesperson John Kirby confirmed President Joe Biden was briefed and the administration is reviewing it. But he wouldn't say if the U.S. supports or rejects what's on the table, only saying talks are at such a critical stage right now and he doesn't want to say anything to jeopardize it from crossing the finish line.
I'm just not going to get ahead of the process. We want to get these hostages out. We want to get a ceasefire in place for 6 weeks. We want to increase humanitarian assistance, and the last thing that I want to do is say anything at this podium that's going to put that process at risk.
No details on this proposal have been made public, but the White House confirmed other key details. CIA Director Bill Burns was involved in negotiations, and that President Biden's 30-minute call this morning with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu happened before news broke of this proposal. But analysts have since pointed out we've only heard from one side, Hamas. Nothing from the Israelis yet, but they're reportedly reviewing it now. So there's a sense of skepticism. Some analysts have since pointed out this could all be spin from Hamas designed to portray the Israelis as not acting in good faith. Here's how Kirby responded to that question.
You know who hasn't answered a single question about his intentions and what games he might be playing or where he intends to take this? Mr. Sinwar, the head of Hamas. And I think it's high time that he answers some of these questions and he come clean about what his intentions are. I don't know. All I know is we've got a response. Bill Burns is looking at that response. He's talking to the Israelis about it, and we'll see where this goes.
Now, Kirby also noted President Biden urged Prime Minister Netanyahu to scrap the Israeli military's operations in Rafah, a move that could derail a temporary pause to the fighting. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
A Taylor Swift fan says there's bad blood between her and popular travel website Booking.com. That's after her accommodations were canceled and the place she thought she was secured was relisted by the rental site at a higher price. She took her story to Rosa Marcatelli at our Go Public team.
If you see this, it's a safe bet you're looking at some serious Taylor Swift fans. Swifties, as they're called. Sarah Fournier is one of them. So as soon as the megastar announced a Toronto concert date, Fournier started making plans with her brother and some friends to travel from Montreal for the November show.
My first thought was to go to Booking.com. I just knew that it was going to be difficult to get accommodations later on.
She booked 2 places, then swiftly scored concert tickets. But just when she thought everything was set, Booking.com told her her accommodations had been canceled.
I just knew something was not right.
Fournier tried to get Booking.com to step up and help her get a similar place at a similar price. They didn't.
Here's the problem. Consumers think what they book on travel websites like Booking.com is locked in, but they shouldn't count on it, according to this technology expert.
Don't believe that Booking.com and other companies have got your back.
The only help Booking.com offered Fournier was a link for other places. By this time, demand and prices had skyrocketed. She then called one of the properties directly for help. Instead, this was the answer she got.
So you don't see an issue with that?
Absolutely not. Our goal in business is to maximize profit.
Booking.com's terms of service clearly say they're not responsible when customers don't get what they're promised. But the expert says they can't legally waive potential responsibility.
There are legal protections for representations that are false, misleading, or deceptive, that induce consumers into transactions.
Booking.com tells GoPublic both of the properties Fournier booked were removed from the site after not meeting the website's terms and conditions, saying Fournier's experience is extremely rare. She's not buying it. In the end, a family friend offered his place to stay. Now that she can count on. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
2 of the biggest names in hip-hop are up in arms. Drake and Kendrick Lamar have been busy over the last few days, and their long-simmering feud is showing no signs of slowing down. Eli Glasner explains the diss tracks that are keeping fans entertained.
Let me hear you say OV-ho. It's the battle of the 2 hip-hop heavyweights you can dance to.
My left stroke just went viral.
In one corner from Compton, the Pulitzer Prize and Grammy Award-winning Kendrick Lamar.
Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cry, but I guess you know now.
In the other, Toronto's very own Drake, one of the most successful rappers of all time.
Where did these be at when they say they doing all this and all that?
They've been trading insults for years, but the feud escalated over the weekend with new songs from Lamar taking aim at Drake's parenting and accusing him of bullying. Drake responded with Family Matters.
Always rapping like you about to get the slaves free. You just acting like an activist, it's make-believe.
But with the song Not Like Us, Lamar leveled some of his most serious allegations.
Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1.
Which led to a diss track from Drake denying dating minors.
A lot of people have been calling this one of the biggest weekends in hip-hop.
While he's disappointed in the direction Canadian rapper Shad says battling is integral to hip-hop.
It's about the excitement and the audience and their enjoyment and the spectacle of it. But it is deeply competitive.
It's really coming down to mudslinging.
This DJ says rappers are targeting Drake because he's an outsider.
You have a mixed race Canadian artist who started out as an actor, became a rapper, and has been on top literally since, for the last 13 years.
Animal fans wait for the next move. The Toronto Chinese restaurant Lamar singled out.
I be at Newhall King eating fried rice with a dip sauce and a blammy, Crody.
And where Drake filmed Family Matters is already benefiting. Now business is booming.
To be honest, it just shows the influence that Kendrick Lamar has.
I think it's good that we're supporting businesses like this, and then they'll be winning no matter what.
An early victor in the battle of rap superstars. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
A young couple's home renovation project in West Vancouver has become an online sensation. After the break, we'll check in on their progress.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
May is Asian Heritage Month, and we're celebrating by sharing the stories of amazing Asian Canadians who are making meaningful contributions in the community. Visit cbc.ca/BC Community to learn more. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
Two local social media influencers are renovating a mid-century modern home in West Vancouver, as you do. They're documenting it all online, where millions of people are following their progress. Our Gloria Makarenko caught up with the couple. Have a listen.
So I recently just bought an abandoned house because it was cheaper than a living house. A living house? I got this house on Friday, so it's still in condition like I got it because I really haven't done much. I've been doing some damage control because there's holes everywhere. There's a hole in the floor here. Luckily, they put a board here to let me know, so I have not fallen through that yet. There are holes in the ceilings. This is not the only one. It's looking a little rough around the edges, but you know, I have faith that I can fix this place up.
Okay, so that was a few months ago, and Jenna Phipps and her partner, Nick Volkov, are with us now in studio. Hello, you two.
Thank you for having us.
Jenna Phipps, what have you got yourself into?
Honestly, I still don't know. We're not done. We still have a couple more years, but so far we have been just on a roller coaster of this house project. It was something we came across and thought it would be a fun project, and still to this day, I think we still
It's a lot of fun still, yeah.
Yeah. You're still at the fun stage. You're only a few months in. Nick, just take us back to those first conversations. I mean, whose crazy idea was this?
Well, I think one evening I was scrolling through the MLS and I stumbled upon a listing that I was maybe not going to show Jenna because we were looking at like rougher places because we knew we wanted to renovate, but I didn't know how rough of a place we wanted. And this one was kind of on the borderline of should I show it to Jenna or not? So, but I did show it to Jenna.
Yeah.
And she fell in love with it instantly.
Yeah. Even though there was no pictures of the house online, it was the property because it really was a write-off. The realtor was trying to sell it as a teardown. But I saw this mid-century modern home and I'm like, what is this? Oh, I see potential here. And then obviously that's when we went and looked at it.
Sure, but I mean, Nick, how well equipped are you? I mean, skill-wise to take this on? Because you're really ripping into it hardcore here.
Yeah, so I think skill-wise, it's mostly YouTube. My dad and I did build a house by ourselves from scratch on Vancouver Island. So this isn't quite like my first gig. I do have a little bit of experience, but I think still a lot of this is just, what do I do? I go on YouTube, I figure out what to do, and then we kind of go from there. So
he also has a background in electrical engineering. That's what he went to school for. So I feel like he downplays it. I'm like, you went to school for engineering. You know a little bit more than you're saying. So,
but Jenna, you didn't just step into someone's home that was abandoned, which it was. And as you say, they wanted to, assuming it was going to be a teardown. You actually stepped into someone's life. I mean, complete with the artwork and the furniture, the piano, the documents, the love letters. What's that been like?
It's honestly like a dream to kind of go and have this mystery when we go into the home, especially when we were going through everything. I really didn't know what to expect, and we did find some treasures that we're like keeping, and there's a lot of things that we are trying to keep in the home, kind of revive it. But honestly, it has been so fun. I don't think I ever would have found, or I didn't imagine I would find a home where it'd come with so much story. And I think that was another thing when we looked at the home and saw the magazine featured in the 1960s. That was something else that really pulled me toward this house, is having that story and having something to share with people and having an extra motive to like go through this, but like, okay, it's worth it. It's worth it in the end. Like, this is going to be amazing.
Well, I love the post where you're going through the love letters, and some of them date back to the actual wartime. I mean, is the idea to keep the letters? Can you throw them out?
We have them all. We have like a few bins of keepsakes, a lot of photos of the home, even photos when it was starting to get built. And we've kind of just put that in a box. We're not sure what we're doing with them yet. I don't think I can throw them away. I'm hoping we can kind of showcase them in some way, but also be respectful to the previous owners if there's something in there. I haven't read through them all, but I'm hoping there's something that we can give insights to people
there
of the
could be
previous owners.
A whole documentary on its own right there.
Exactly.
It could be. But Nick, I mean, look at the condition of this house. The roof was leaking everywhere, holes in the floors, holes in the walls, rats falling out of place.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess dead rats at this point in the insulation. The swimming pool, that's a whole other story. What's been your biggest challenge so far, Nick?
I think probably on the engineering and permitting side. There's so many things that you need to put together in order to get like permit and permission from the city. And so for pretty much, I want to say like the last 2-3 months, we've been getting together all the paperwork, all the documentation required to actually submit for a permit and get what we need. And from an engineering side, I think it's going to be really cool, the structural changes that we have to make. Back in the day, everything was kind of built with wood and stick framing, but now our structural engineers come in and we have like metal beams going through the house. There's going to be a bunch of really, really cool cantilevered features, all original, but just sort of modernized for today's. Up to code, yeah.
I know, but Jenna, this is whole new territory for you. And I know you were already a social media influencer with your sewing and your knitting, post craft, that type of thing. How would you compare the responses from your followers, your responses to the sewing and knitting projects compared to the home reno project?
I think at first everyone was really excited because I think it's cool to watch someone go through a journey of taking a home that is in such terrible shape and then hopefully bring it to something amazing. So I think my audience at the time was really excited. But then I started to reach a different audience that I wasn't fully expecting. I haven't been a lot in the home space, only the DIY home space. And that's when I got a lot of opinions, a lot of little bit, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it this way.
Why are you throwing that out?
Exactly. I need to keep everything, which I understand. I would love to keep everything, but unfortunately, with the circumstances, we weren't able to. So that was something new that I kind of had to learn to be like, okay, we need to learn how to control this and make sure it doesn't really affect me.
Good. And it's not affecting you so far.
No, it hasn't.
Water off a duck's back. There you go.
Exactly.
That's important. But it's interesting. You do have a presence. You've got close to 900,000 YouTube followers right now.
Yeah.
One of your Instagram posts, you got 1.8 million views.
Yeah, I have 1.8 million followers on Instagram, 1.2 on TikTok, and then 900,000 on YouTube.
So to what extent does that social media presence help to fund the renovations?
Oh, definitely, because this is now my full-time. Social media was always my full-time job, but now I can pivot my content to just working on the house. If I was doing other content, there's no way that I'd be able to put 50, 60 hours into the house each week. So it's really given me the freedom to fully put all my effort into this house, but also showcase it at the same time.
Right, but you both pointed out this could be a couple of years project. Have you got the energy for it, Nick?
I think one day at a time, right? When you look at the project and you look at all the things that need to be done, it's a little bit overwhelming. But if you take everything and kind of break it into little bits and go day by day, I think it's all right. And you slowly make a plan and you realize, okay, day by day, might take 2 years, but we can get it all done.
Are you living on site now?
No, we actually just live close by, so we're able to, go back and forth throughout the day.
I see. Jenna, what's the ultimate vision for you 2 years down the road with this?
Oh, to make it our dream home. I really would like to move in 2 years from now, and then we can really work on final touches of making everything in the home kind of perfect to our lifestyle, but also recreate the mid-century modern. So I'm hoping 2 years we're in there and really focusing just on furniture, the design, what I really, really love. So
and the best pool party ever.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I've already gotten my family where they're like, oh, we're so excited. We're going to have events here now. So
I love your posts. I love following you. Listen, keep it up and we'll all be watching, okay?
Thanks so much.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC GM, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC. Michelle Gassoub will have your next local news after playoff hockey and the National. Good night.